You were paid to ruin my night, Janet, so why do I keep wishing you'd ruin the rest of my life too? The story opens with a reversal of expectations. Janet, desperate and broke, agrees to sabotage a stranger's blind date for $5,000. It's supposed to be quick, anonymous, and forgettable. Instead, it becomes the beginning of something complicated, magnetic, and dangerously real. Because the man she's supposed to push away isn't a sleazy socialite or a manipulative husband, he's William Miller, the intensely private, sinfully attractive CEO of a billion-dollar company with calloused hands, blue-collar roots, and eyes that see through everything, including lies. The hook captures a thrilling contradiction. Janet was paid to push William away, but ends up pulled into his world, one she was never meant to enter. Welcome to Stories That Touch. Before we dive in, drop a comment with your city. We love seeing how far these stories reach. As you watch, let your heart do the listening. And when it ends, tell us, how deeply did it touch you? Rate it from 0 to 10 and share the moment that hit you hardest. If you crave more emotional stories packed with twists, heartbreak, healing, and truth, follow Stories That Touch so you never miss a journey. Now settle in, because this one might just stay with you. The thing about hitting rock bottom is you start mistaking cracks in the floor for escape routes. My cracked camera lens mocked me from the kitchen counter as I stared at the second notice from my landlord. I had $36.17 to my name, half a roll of toilet paper, and exactly 0 gigs on my photography calendar. I'd been ghosted by 2 clients, passed over by 4 agencies, and just that morning, a little kid at the diner spilled orange juice all over my tip jar. I was waiting tables to stay alive, and even that wasn't working. So when Mia texted me that ad, I didn't laugh. I didn't even blink. $5,000 for a one-night role play. No sex, no strings, no questions. Actress type preferred, must commit. "Tell me you're not considering this," she said from the couch, mouth full of takeout lo meis. "I'm considering being evicted," I muttered. One elevator ride and an identity crisis later, I was staring at Stella. She looked like old money had birthed her on a marble floor. Impeccable posture, satin dress that probably cost more than my rent, heels sharp enough to qualify as weapons. She didn't bother offering her hand. "You need to ruin a blind date," she said flatly. That's how she introduced herself. Not hi or thanks for coming, just business. "You'll go in my place, use my name, sabotage everything." I blinked. "Wait, you're sending me on your blind date?" She nodded once. "The man I'm seeing has misplaced priorities. I need to know if he's as loyal as he claims." She opened a slim black folder and slid it across the table. Inside, a stack of cash that looked like it had never been touched. 5s, 10s, 50s, all rubber-banded into perfect bundles. I was suddenly very aware of how empty my stomach was. $5,000 cash, Stella said, "if he walks out." "And if he doesn't?" I asked. She smiled coldly. "Then you make him." 2 hours later, I was at home, in front of the mirror, dressed like a walking red flag. Neon pink blazer, sequined tank top, leopard print skirt with a run in the hem. I looked like a cocktail of chaos. Mia circled me like a disapproving fashion critic. "You look like a brunch date threw up on you," she said. "Perfect," I replied. She added a few fake pimples with red lip liner for effect, and I practiced my lines in the mirror. "I'm super into taxidermy. I named my plants after my exes. I think dogs should vote." By the time I arrived at the restaurant, one of those sleek, overglassed Fifth Avenue places with hostesses that judged you silently, I gave the name Stella at the front and was led to a candlelit table in the corner. And that's when I saw him. He was already seated, crisp navy suit, white shirt, no tie, relaxed but lethal. He looked like a man who knew exactly how much power he had and didn't need to show off to prove it. William Miller. I recognized him instantly, not just because of the headlines. Billionaire plumber turned CEO, the blue-collar tech titan, the most eligible man in Manhattan. No, I recognized him because he looked up at me with eyes like ice warmed by fire. Calm, calculating, curious. I walked toward the table, tripping slightly on my own heel, and gave the most cringeworthy wave in history. "Hi, I'm Stella," I said too loudly. His brow quirked. He stood, slow and measured, and pulled out my chair like a gentleman raised on Southern manners and bar fights. "William," he said simply. I plopped into my seat, too fast, nearly knocked over the water glass, saved it at the last second. "Whoopsie," I giggled. Dinner was a masterclass in secondhand embarrassment. I monologued about wanting 8 kids named after constellations. I chewed loudly. I fake laughed at my own jokes. I asked if he had life insurance. And through all of it, William never flinched. He watched me with an unreadable half-smile, like he was a puzzle he was already solving, like he'd cracked the code before I even finished writing it. "So," he said, when dessert arrived and I was halfway through a tirade about reincarnating as a sea sponge, "was the costume your idea or someone else's?" I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "Excuse me?" "You're not like this," he said, leaning back. "The outfit, the act, the wild stories." I tried to laugh, but my voice cracked. "What makes you so sure?" He tilted his head. "You look like someone who's used to being ignored, not someone who tries this hard to be unforgettable." My throat went dry. He leaned in, voice low, eyes locked on mine. "So tell me, Stella, who are you really?" I wanted to crawl under the table. His words weren't loud, weren't cruel, but they landed like a spotlight on every lie stitched into my skin. "So tell me, Stella, who are you really?" I did what any professional disaster would do. I panicked, then doubled down. I slapped on my brightest smile and popped a whole spoonful of creme brulee into my mouth like I hadn't just been accused of being fake. "Wow, you're intense," I said, around caramel and panic. "Is this part of your interview process for future wives or just the crazy ones?" William didn't laugh, but something in his expression flickered, like he was amused but trying not to show it. He leaned back, fingertips tapping his glass. "You know what I think?" he asked. "I think you were sent here to scare me off, and now you're trying to scare yourself out of whatever this is." I blinked. "Whatever this is?" "Dinner with someone who's pretending not to be interesting." My fork paused midair. I had rehearsed everything, the exaggerated gestures, the bad jokes, the fake spiritual obsession with moon energy, but nothing had prepared me for this man's ability to look past the mess and see me. It was unsettling and, weirdly, kind of hot. I leaned back in my seat and shooed dramatically. "Fine," I said, voice syrupy. "I get weekly readings from my psychic. She says I was married to Julius Caesar in a past life, and that I'm allergic to commitment in this one." "Makes sense," he replied smoothly. "You're certainly stabbing this date to death." A snort escaped before I could catch it. "God help me," I laughed. For the next 30 minutes, I leaned in. I talked over the waiter. I bragged about how many times I'd watched Twilight eclipse. I claimed my emotional support animal was a goldfish named Bubbles who'd recently passed from trauma-induced stress. "How does a fish have trauma?" he asked. "She lived with me," I said solemnly. He chuckled, not a polite one either, a real warm sound that made his shoulders relax and the edge in his eyes soften. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt rattled, because even while I was performing my worst self, he was listening, genuinely. The waiter brought the check without asking. William reached for it before I could fake fumble for my purse. "Thanks," I said, high-voiced and breathy. "That was fun. Maybe next time I'll tell you about my sock puppet collection." He tucked his card away and stood. "Next time?" I froze. Was that a joke? A trap? He couldn't possibly want a next time, right? We stepped outside into the crisp Manhattan night. The city was alive in that usual sparkling, slightly chaotic way. Taxis honking, heels clicking, laughter echoing from somewhere around the corner. William held the door for me, then walked me a few steps toward the curb. "So," he said, hands in his pockets, "should I just pretend I believe your fish story?" I tried to deflect with a grin. Believe it or not, Bubbles was a real one. May she rest in peace. His gaze softened again. "And you," he asked, "are you real?" My stomach did a slow, treacherous flip. He didn't ask it like a test. He asked it like he wanted the answer. And for one stupid, unguarded second, I almost told him. Almost said, "My name's not Stella. I'm broke, I'm scared, and I don't know how to stop lying now that you've looked at me like that." But I didn't. Instead, I forced out a shaky laugh. "I'm complicated." William smiled, not with his mouth, with his eyes, like he knew I was going to say that. "Aren't we all?" he replied. He didn't kiss me. He didn't try to get my number. He just touched my elbow lightly, nodded once, and walked away, confident, calm, like a man who was never chasing anything, but always expected it to come back.
Back in my apartment, I kicked off the nightmare heels and collapsed onto the couch. The second my body hit the cushions, the exhaustion slammed into me. But it wasn't just physical. I'd spent the entire night pretending to be someone else. And still, somewhere between the fake burps and fish jokes, he saw through me. That's what scared me the most. Not that he knew, that he cared. I dragged the envelope out of my purse and stared at it, still sealed, still bulging with money. Blood money, shame money, salvation money. I opened it slowly, hands trembling, counted $50 bills, crisp and cruel. On top, folded neatly, was a single note from Stella. He was supposed to walk away. I looked at my phone. One new message. No name. Unknown. Tonight was strange. You were strange. I liked it. Dinner again? My heart pounded. The cost of...
When she left, the silence in the apartment felt suffocating. I sat on the edge of my bed, dress still wrinkled from the interview, and stared at the offer letter in my inbox. $58,000 per year plus benefits. A new life. A fresh start. But now, it came with chains. 3 days later, I was back in the Miller Works office, head down, mouth shut. I'd barely spoken a word to William since the interview, but he hadn't sent me home. He hadn't rescinded the offer. He'd let me in, which made everything worse. That Friday, a calendar invite popped up in my inbox. From William Miller, subject, creative walkthrough. Location, the Met rooftop. Time, 5:30 p.m. I stared at it for a full minute before clicking accept. He was already there when I arrived, leaning on the edge of the stone balustrade, city skyline melting into gold behind him. No suit today, just dark jeans and a navy button-up, sleeves rolled up to his forearms like he'd been building something instead of running a company. He turned when he heard me. "I thought you'd bail," he said, casual. "Thought about it," I admitted. He smiled, the kind that made people write sonnets, the kind that made me forget all the reasons I should walk away. "Come on," he said. "Let's walk." The rooftop was nearly empty, the light low and soft, casting halos around the marble statues and art installations. I trailed beside him, unsure of how close was too close. "I like this place," he said. "It's quiet, real, no press, no suits." "No disasters in leopard print?" I offered. He laughed, and I swear, it felt like sunlight. "I liked her too," he said. "She was awful, but honest." I bit my lip. If only he knew. "What about you?" he asked. "What's your real story? You're not just a wedding photographer. I saw that shot you submitted. Old man fixing a fire hydrant. It wasn't posed." "It wasn't," I said quietly. "It was my uncle. He raised me after my mom left, worked sanitation, never smiled in photos until that day." William stopped walking, turned to face me. "That's the kind of story we need at Miller Works. That's why I hired you." My throat tightened. Not because he believed in me, because he still didn't know what I'd done. We sat on a bench overlooking the skyline. The wind tugged at my hair. For a moment, the world felt like it was holding its breath. "You're different when you're not performing," William said softly. "Maybe this is the performance," I whispered. He looked at me. Really looked. And then, slowly, deliberately, he reached for my hand. His fingers brushed mine, warm and steady. "Who are you really, Janet?" My pulse stopped, because I didn't know how to answer without ruining everything. For a moment, I thought I might actually confess. William's hand was warm in mine. His voice had dropped into something low and quiet, the kind of tone people use when they want the truth, not the performance. "Who are you really, Janet?" But I was still tangled in Stella's threat, the money burning a hole in my drawer, the knowledge that one wrong word could bring everything crashing down. So I pulled away. "Just a girl trying to pay her rent," I said with a shrug. He didn't push, but the look he gave me said everything. He didn't believe me. I kept my distance after that. In the office, I buried myself in shoots and edits. I barely looked at him in meetings. I dodged elevator rides and coffee runs. The closer we got, the more dangerous it felt. I had to keep the lines clean, professional, safe. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. William wasn't watching me like before. He was studying me, like he was waiting for me to slip, like he already knew. And the truth was, he did. William Miller wasn't a fool. While I was spiraling and second-guessing, he was investigating. Security footage from the restaurant, background checks, conversations with a few of Stella's not-so-loyal friends. He knew I wasn't Stella. He knew I'd been paid. He even knew where the envelope came from. But William didn't confront me. Not yet. Instead, he watched, waited, and planned. The invitation came in a sleek black envelope slid onto my desk late Friday afternoon. You've been assigned to photograph the Miller Works annual gala. Black tie, 7 p.m., address below. I almost dropped my coffee. The gala was the biggest event of the year. Industry elites, media, cameras, pressure. It wasn't a job you gave to a junior creative, which meant this wasn't about photography. This was a test. Or a trap. I showed up in black, tasteful, modest, safe. Camera strapped across my shoulder like a shield. The ballroom was a garden of chandeliers and couture. Jazz floated through the air, champagne towers sparkled, and right in the center of it all stood William, in a tux that looked like it had been made for him under moonlight. He spotted me immediately, his gaze locked on mine. He didn't smile. He just walked straight towards me, took the camera gently from around my neck, and handed it off to an assistant I hadn't seen behind me. "You're not working tonight," he said. What? "You're with me." And before I could protest, he took my hand and led me onto the floor. People turned. They whispered. They stared. I felt like every lie I'd ever told was lit up in neon across my forehead. But William didn't flinch. He introduced me to executives, politicians, tech leaders. He poured me a drink. He touched my back like we belonged to each other. "Why are you doing this?" I finally asked, voice barely audible over the music. He didn't answer right away. He just looked down at me, eyes unreadable. "Because I want to see which part of you is real, and I think you're about to show me." That's when Stella showed up. Draped in gold, surrounded by handlers, looking like she owned the air around her. She spotted us instantly. Her expression tightened, but she smiled, that snake charmer smile. She cornered William near the edge of the floor while I lingered behind a column half hidden by ivy. "Cut the act," she hissed, just loud enough for me to hear. "Whatever stunt you're pulling with her, it's pathetic." William turned to her, glass in hand, voice calm and ice cold. "The only act here is yours, Stella." Silence rippled outward. A few journalists nearby turned, phones in hand. "Excuse me?" she said, voice sharp. "You paid a woman to sabotage me," he continued. "And when that didn't work, you threatened her. That's not love. That's obsession." Cameras flashed. Gasps echoed. "Let me be clear," he said, loud enough for the entire corner of the ballroom to hear. "I don't want you. I never did." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He had just torched her, publicly, permanently. For what? Me? I slipped away before anyone could see me cry. Backstage, behind a curtain near the storage hallway, I tried to catch my breath. My hands were shaking. Then I heard footsteps, slow, measured, deliberate. William appeared through the curtain. No camera crew, no crowd, no armor. Just him. And in his hand, the envelope, the original one. Crisp, familiar, stamped with my mistake. He held it out between us. "We need to talk." The envelope between us was heavier than it looked. William held it like it was evidence, a line crossed, a truth he'd known but needed me to say.
We stood there in the dim hallway backstage, the distant hum of music still drifting from the gala. But in this moment, there was no audience, no cameras, just me, him, and the lie we'd both let live too long. "I should have confronted you weeks ago," he said, voice low. "But I wanted to believe the version of you I saw outside of that restaurant, the woman who took photos of sanitation workers and laughed about goldfish." His jaw clenched. "But then I realized you were both, the disaster and the girl I can't stop thinking about." I opened my mouth, but no words came. My throat closed up. The tears started before I could blink them away. He extended the envelope towards me. "Tell me why." I took it from him like it was made of glass, like any sudden movement might shatter the last of whatever stood between us. "Because I was broke," I whispered. He didn't react, just waited. My camera lens cracked, my rent was due, my bank account was overdrafted, and I didn't know what else to do. I swallowed hard. "Your wife, Stella, she found me. I don't know how, but she offered me $5,000 to ruin your night. Said it was a test, that she wanted to see if you'd fall for someone else." William looked away. His silence was louder than any shout. "I told myself it was one night, just a job," I continued. "But then I saw you." I forced myself to meet his eyes. "And the worst part," my voice cracked, "I didn't expect you to be real, and I never expected to fall for you." For a long time, he said nothing. Then, "You lied to me." "I know," I nodded.
You lied about your name, about why you were there, about everything. I know. And still, he said, stepping closer, I saw your truth in every moment you forgot to pretend. His voice was softer now, rougher, wounded. The way you looked at the world through your lens, the way you let yourself laugh when you thought no one was watching, the way you tried to push me away but kept showing up anyway. My lip trembled. "I wanted to tell you," I said, 100 times, but the longer I waited, the harder it got. "Yeah, that's how lies work." We stood there, two people holding the wreckage between them. I don't know how long we stayed in that silence, but eventually he looked down, then back up. His voice was quiet, final. "I need time." I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. "Of course." He turned and walked away, and this time, I didn't follow. The next morning, the news broke. Not the scandal, not the lie, but the truth in the form of a public press statement from Millerworks signed by William himself. Janet Fields was unknowingly used in a private manipulation attempt. She was offered money to participate in an orchestrated personal sabotage that has since been resolved. Her work, character, and employment with Millerworks remain her own merit and decision. Any rumors otherwise are false. It was a lifeline, a shield, a gesture, but not a call, not a text, not a knock at my door. William had cleared my name and walked away. Weeks passed. The scandal faded, the rumors died, and William Miller didn't speak to me again. But I saw him. In the way my security badge still worked, in the way my assignments kept landing on the top-tier desk, in the way my creative pitch for the new Real Work campaign, the one spotlighting blue-collar heroes, was approved in less than 24 hours. He was still there, watching, but silent, and I threw myself into the work like it was a life raft. Because maybe it was. I shot everything. Construction sites at sunrise, sewer techs during the graveyard shift, welders hunched over sparks that painted their faces like firelight. My lens became my confession, the only way I could say what I was feeling without risking more damage. William never showed up. Not on set, not in meetings, not in the hallways. But his initials were still on every approval, every green light, every single yes. When the public exhibit went live, Faces of the Real, I didn't expect anyone important to show. The gallery was small, industrial, string lights looped overhead, cheap wine, loud critics, quiet artists. And then, he was there, standing in the back, half in shadow, black suit, no tie. William. I froze mid-sentence while speaking with a guest. My heart stuttered like an old engine. He didn't move toward me, just looked. Then slowly, he walked to the far wall, to the photo I hadn't meant to submit. It was from our second date, not the one Stella paid for, the one that happened when he invited me to the Met. It was a candid shot. I'd snapped it when he wasn't looking. He was smiling at something I'd said, hand in his pocket, skyline behind him. No suit, no walls, no armor. Just him. The real him. That was the piece the gallery had chosen for the center of the room. I stepped behind a pillar to breathe. Seconds later, footsteps found me again. His voice, low like gravel and velvet, found me first. I told myself to let you go. I turned slowly. William stood there, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on me. I told myself it was cleaner, smarter, safer. He paused. But I haven't been able to. My chest cracked open, just like that. "Why did you come tonight?" I asked. "Because I needed to see what the world looks like through your eyes." I swallowed hard. "What do we do now?" He took a step closer. One more. And then, "Now I stop punishing us for how we started." Absolutely. Here is Chapter 8, the public declaration, picking up directly from Chapter 7's emotionally vulnerable moment and rising into a bold, public, romantic crescendo. The tone remains deeply cinematic, intimate, powerful, and earned. Chapter 8, the public declaration. The second gala wasn't subtle. Nothing Millerworks did ever was. It was hosted at the Glass House in Manhattan, a shimmering architectural marvel of light and steel suspended above the skyline. Cameras lined the entrance, spotlights danced in the sky, music pulsed from within like the building itself had a heartbeat. I arrived alone, no invite in hand, just a whisper from William's assistant that I should be there, dressed for something more than a work assignment. I wore black again, not because I was hiding this time, but because it made me feel like I could survive anything. Inside, the buzz was electric. The press was everywhere. Is William Miller arriving with a date tonight? Do we have a name for the photographer who was at the last gala? Sources say the mystery woman may be an employee. I moved through the crowd like a ghost. Everyone was looking for me, and somehow no one saw me. Until he did. William stepped on the raised platform at the front of the ballroom. No cue, no formal introduction, just a microphone in hand and the crowd instantly falling into silence. He looked out across the room, not nervous, not smug, still, solid, certain. "A while ago," he began, voice steady, "someone was paid to ruin a date with me." The room rippled, heads turned, flashbulbs fired. She showed up wearing the loudest dress you've ever seen. She talked too much, laughed too loud, faked a psychic addiction, ate like it was a competition. Laughter. Uneasy. Curious. But William didn't smile. "But then she did something else," he continued. "She looked at me like she could see the man beneath the suit, and I started to realize." He glanced out, eyes scanning the crowd, until they found me. She wasn't ruining anything. She was saving me from the life I'd built by accident. A hush fell over the room, a press silence. I found out she was paid to be there, that she lied to me, that she had reasons to walk away every step of the way. He stepped down from the stage. The crowd parted, and he walked straight to me. But she didn't walk away. The cameras were flashing, the air was electric, and I couldn't move, not even when he stopped in front of me. Not even when he took my hand. This is me choosing her in front of everyone. Applause exploded. Somewhere near the bar, a crystal glass shattered, and Janet Fields stormed out without a word. Later, back at my apartment, it was quiet again. The dress was on a hanger, the makeup washed off, my bare feet padded against the old wood floor as I lit the single candle I always kept in the kitchen for nights that felt too big. William stood in the doorway, watching me. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the envelope, the original one. It looked almost exactly the same, except this time it wasn't filled with money. He placed it on the table between us. "Open it." I hesitated, then slid the flap back. Inside was a small, square photo, a candid, my laugh caught mid-breath on the rooftop of the Met, and beside it, a ring. Delicate, timeless, silver band, a single diamond, and something engraved inside so small I had to squint.
Worst night of your life? He asked gently. I looked up at him, tears blurring my vision. My throat tightened, and I couldn't speak. Not yet. 6 months later, the world looked different from the stage. Brighter, fuller, real. The conference room at the International Design Summit was packed, rows of creatives, journalists, and industry insiders all leaning forward, hanging on every word as I stood beneath the glowing lights. My name was printed across the screen behind me in bold serif letters. Janet Fields, Creative Director, Global Division, Millerworks. That last part still made my heart stutter sometimes. Not because I didn't think I'd earned it, but because I knew how I'd earned it. The hard way, the wrong way, the honest way. I adjusted the mic and smiled at the crowd. When I started as a photographer, I thought creativity was about perfection, about getting the light just right, the pose just right, the timing perfect. A few nods from the front row. But I've learned that the best shots happen when things fall apart, when you forget the frame, when something real sneaks in. I paused, letting my gaze drift across the faces. Somewhere just beyond the side curtain, I knew he was there. Watching. Always. This isn't a talk about how to climb a ladder. It's about what happens when you fall off one and decide to build something better from the ground up. Laughter, applause, and it's about the truth, the terrifying, raw, beautiful truth that sometimes you have to lose everything you pretended to be in order to become who you really are. When I walked off stage, the lights dimmed behind me and the crowd faded into background noise. And then, he was there, leaning against the wall in a suit that made his smile feel illegal. William, you crushed it, he said. I'm rolling my eyes. You're just saying that because you quoted my terrible coffee analogy. It's not terrible, it's accurate. Bad beans, bad taste. We both laughed. Easy now, natural, no performance. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the envelope. The envelope. I raised a brow. Again? Final time, I promise. I opened it slowly. Inside was an old familiar photo, my candid laugh from our second date, slightly worn around the edges. It still made my chest ache. But beneath it was a slip of paper, folded in half. I opened it. His handwriting was unmistakable. The refund, with interest, for a life I never expected, but wouldn't trade for anything. I looked up at him, tears already stinging my lashes. You sap, I whispered. Guilty. He stepped closer. No more lies? I asked. None, he said. No more pretending. Just this. He kissed me, slow, steady, like he had all the time in the world. And maybe, finally, we did. No secrets, no shadows, just the two of us, starting again. Some love stories start with a spark. Ours started with a disaster, and somehow turned into forever. Some stories end with fireworks, grand gestures, public confessions, impossible odds overcome in a single breath. But this one ended the way real love often does, quietly, honestly, and with the choice to stay again and again. Looking back, would you have made the same choice Janet did? Risking the truth, the job, even her heart for a shot at something real? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments. What moment moved you most? And what would you have done? If this story touched you, please subscribe to Stories That Touch, and don't forget to leave a comment and rating below. Your feedback helps us create more stories that linger long after the screen fades. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned. The next story might just speak to you.